Hello, beauties. Welcome back to Midlife by Human Design. We're going to talk more about sex today. This is my way of normalizing this conversation, is to have the conversation. I mentioned in the last episode 106, where I talked about sexuality as it relates to the types, our human design type, how much we suppress discussing sexuality, how uncomfortable it is, and how those roots are really in our Puritan history, and they're about control. So this is part of my attempt to normalize it and to help you feel more comfortable with talking about sex and thinking about sex and understanding that in midlife, no matter what your hormones are doing, you are a being here to experience pleasure and here to experience the beauty of feeling through your body. So we talked a lot about heated rivalry and how much of an awakening women in particular have experienced as a result of watching this series. And sometimes in midlife, our sex drive can feel very inconsistent. You know, there's a lot going on with our hormones. Your diet may be catching up to you. There are so many different things that can be playing into how your desire has been exhibiting itself in midlife. And then along comes a show that lights you up and makes you think, holy shit, maybe I do want sex more often. It doesn't mean that it's any less complicated because you've woken up. It just means that it's an opportunity for you to revisit this part of your life and to understand yourself more deeply. And that is what I am trying to help you do over this short series. And sexuality in midlife and even before midlife can very often be multi-layered, right? So many emotions can be layered in to your experience with your sexuality, including things like shame or shyness or anger or fear or sadness, layered in with those positive feelings of desire and yearning and pleasure and happiness and joyfulness. And I think that understanding that and allowing for all of those feelings is one of the first ways that you can make your way back to a more active sex life, or even just understanding yourself a lot more deeply. So if you have ever wondered why you like certain things in the bedroom, then this episode is definitely for you, because we're going to talk about specific placements in your chart that tell you very specific things. They're like cheat codes for what works for you, what helps to crank up the desire in your body. So if you don't have your chart, go get it at my website, LoriLisai.com. Go to get your chart, type in your birth details, and take a look at it, and then follow along with this episode. So there are 3 distinct sexual needs in terms of what we need to trigger desire in our body that live in our body graph chart. One is about experience. It's about imagination, anticipation. It's about like this emotional build that is related to desire. Another one is more focused on sound and acoustics, the conversation, the tone of voice, music, those types of things. And then the third one is more focused on physical touch and closeness, proximity, presence. So these are the three pathways that we're going to talk about today. And when we're talking about them, I want you to understand that if you have been tired of the same old foreplay routine and it's just not doing it for you anymore, then this is what it's about. Understanding your chart and understanding your desires is the key. So, to quote Elia, listen the fuck up. This is important information for you. It is a cosmic permission slip for you to ask for what you need and to understand, if you are in a partnership, what your partner needs and where the two of you may link up to create that desire even in one another. So we're going to look today at some specific placements coming out of the solar plexus, the emotional solar plexus. If you look at the chart, it is toward the bottom of the chart on the right-hand side, the triangle facing in toward the square, which is your sacral. This is the center for pleasure. So grab your chart. If you're partnered, you can also run your partner's chart to see what they have. So the first thing I want to talk about is circuitry. And circuitry is how the energy moves within the channels in your chart. So the channels kind of look like tubes that connect the different shapes in the chart. And so the circuitry is, if you kind of take a step back from those channels, it's looking at groups of channels and how the energy actually moves within those. So there are three groups. One is the collective group, which is, generally speaking, the outside channels of the chart. So the channels that are literally on the outer edges of the chart connecting the centers, those are collective channels. Individual channels are, generally speaking, again, in the middle. And then tribal or community channels are the innermost on the inside. And there are some kind of funky placements, but for our purposes today, we really only need to know those three general groups and specifically how they look in the solar plexus. The outermost channels are collective, the ones in the middle are individual, and the ones all the way on the inside are tribal. So let's talk about this first pathway, this first cheat code for desire. We're going to start with experience. So experience lives in the collective circuitry. If you have either of the two channels on the outside of the chart, so that would be 3536 connecting the throat to the solar plexus, or 4130 connecting the root to the solar plexus. This is collective circuitry. And the themes here are fantasy, anticipation, this emotional unfolding, this need for experience, this kind of longing and yearning for experience. And what I want to say for you, if you have either of these channels, is that number one, sexual experiences should be an experience. They should be multi-sensory. They should feel new and exciting. These are keys to your desire. So let's talk a little bit more specifically about a couple of the gates. I'm going to look at the channel 4130. So 41 is in the root, reaching up to the solar plexus. And this is where the spark of desire happens. This is the very first gate. It's called the start codon to our DNA. It's where life begins, essentially. So thinking about that spark of desire. And this is also a gate of imagination. It's a gate of possibility. It's a gate of yearning. This is where the what if becomes so, so sexy. So I love to think that role play can be a beautiful aphrodisiac for this gate. Gate 30 is the opposite of gate 41. It's in the solar plexus reaching for the root. And this gate is the yearning part of the kind of the pair here. It brings the emotional intensity to that experience, to that craving experience, to that yearning, to that wanting depth of the experience. So think about deep connection here and having an experience together that brings you closer, that feels like, oh, we did that together. We just had a really hot experience. And when you think about things like role play, there definitely has to be an element of trust between the two of you in order for you to feel confident and comfortable enough to take on different roles and create an experience like that. So as we're moving throughout midlife, if you have collective placements, either the 35-36 or the 41-30, then consider experimenting with spicing it up, creating a whole experience instead of just like a wham bam, thank you ma'am situation. That is really not for you if you have this collective circuitry. Trying new things, being willing to talk with your partner, or if you don't have a partner, just being willing to try different things with different people safely. Take your partner on a journey, whatever that looks like. Take yourself on a journey if you are unpartnered. All right, let's talk about sound. So there are some people who are very much wired for sound and acoustics. And so talk is a desire cheat code. This could be like, talk dirty to me. Sound holds the key. These people may want to talk throughout sex. This is how desire is activated for these people. So tone of voice really matters a lot if you have this circuitry. And here we're talking about, since it's individual, we're talking about those channels that are in the middle. So that would be the 39-55 coming up from the root to the solar plexus, and the 12-22 coming from the solar plexus to the throat. So this circuitry here is very attuned to what things sound like. So if there's anything in your voice that is betraying how you feel, even if you don't think you're betraying how you feel, you probably are being heard on a very distinct level from a person who has any of this circuitry. So could be one of the gates, could be all of the gates. They're just going to be highly attuned. So I love looking at gate 39 when we're thinking about this energy, because this gate is called the gate of provocation. It's in the root, reaching up toward the solar plexus. And it's called the gate of provocation. And some people see it as, a negative kind of energy because it's provoking. But in terms of sex, I think it can be super sexy. It can be that energy of teasing. It can be the energy of stirring another person emotionally. There's like this push-pull kind of energy with it. And honestly, I think of Ilya a lot when I think of this energy, because he's such a great example of that playful tease. And he clearly loves using sound, right? It's like he's consistently talking, asking for consent, asking if things are okay. These are all examples of how desire works with this circuitry, with these two channels. Gate 55, which is the opposite of gate 39, it's the other half of the channel. This brings in, again, the emotional flavor to that provocation. It brings that yearning. And this is actually the gate of abundance. So if you have this whole channel, you're going to have a wave of desire. And in fact, if you have any of these channels, like the full channel that activates your solar plexus, you are going to have waves of emotion. And so sometimes it'll be like, you'll be in the mood or you won't be in the mood. And this is especially for this circuit here, the 3955 and the 1222. It's like, if you're not in the mood for sex, don't even think about forcing it. It's like, there's no middle ground here for you. It's like you're either in or you are out. So again, this is a great thing to know about yourself because it can save a lot of hurt feelings. If your partner does not have this energy and doesn't understand, they could very easily feel rejected if you are just not in the mood. But it's not a rejection of them, it's just simple mechanics. So as long as you are honest with how you're feeling and you are tuned in to how your emotional wave works, then you can be honest and forthright. I definitely suggest that you not use it as a crutch or an excuse, like, oh, I can just fall back on this, I'm not in the mood, when there's something else that's underlying. I really want to encourage you to learn your wave, to understand its highs and lows, and to not put any blame or pressure on it, and to not use it in any kind of manipulative way. But don't try to force yourself if you have either of these channels. Conversations really matter if you have any of these gates, if you have any of this like acoustic circuitry in your chart. You connect through conversation, even through mundane conversation, like talking about chores or whatever. It's always in the tone of voice. Being super sensitive to that tone of voice is an important part of what triggers desire for you. And chemistry happens in interacting with the other person, like actually hearing them talk to you and having a conversation with them versus just seeing somebody and being like, ooh, he's hot, she's hot, whatever. Okay, and the last kind of category of desire that we're talking about here is touch, is like skin to skin contact. And this lives in the tribal circuitry. So on the inside of the gates coming out of the solar plexus. And this is, like I said, all about touch. It's about proximity. It's about warmth. Because it is tribal energy, it's this feeling of belonging and safety and feeling like you're at home with your partner. This is very much about being in the body as opposed to being in the mind. So let's talk this time about gate 37. Gate 37 comes out of the solar plexus, but it reaches toward the heart. The last few channels I did are all root to solar plexus, but for this one, I really wanted to talk about gate 37 because this is the cuddle gate. This is the gate that really loves to snuggle and cuddle and just be with your partner. And I would say if either of you has this gate, this is going to be really, really important. So even if you are one who gets exhausted by sex and falls asleep immediately after, it will go so far if your partner has gate 37 to fall asleep on their chest or, vice versa. Somehow be reaching out and touching them and maintaining that comfort, that closeness, because that helps to build that emotional safety. This desire trigger for you really wants to feel that caressing. Massage is a beautiful desire touch point, literal touch point for you if you have gate 37. And then I also wanted to talk about gate 19, which back to the root, reaching toward the solar plexus. This is the gate of sensitivity and need. And one thing to note about having gate 19 is that it ramps up your sensitivity in your entire chart. So understanding that about yourself is really, really important. If you don't have the entire channel, it doesn't matter. It's like you still want to understand that you are going to be hypersensitive to all kinds of things. So gate 19 is in general going to be less interested in that surface level. Maybe like one night stands won't be your thing. You want real connection, and touch is important to you. So think about massage. Think about flirtatious touch. If you're starting dating again, not being afraid to reach across the dinner table to touch the other person's hand. Hand holding is a beautiful way to express desire and to really feed this gate 19 need of skin to skin contact. And if you are partnered and you've been together for a long time, remembering that touch is important to you, and or if your partner has any of this circuitry, touch is important to them. So when you're walking across the kitchen to load the dishwasher and you pass your partner thinking about, okay, I'm just going to slide my hand across their ass, or whatever the case may be, just as an example. You may find that you recognize yourself in some of these. Maybe you have some of these gates and you don't recognize yourself. Maybe you're like, holy shit, I think maybe I've lost touch with this. That is okay. Remember that human design is a system. And it is not a rule book. Human design is not ever meant to put you in a box. It's simply a way for you to look at your chart and ask yourself, do I have any of these indicators? Is this potentially my path back to desire? Is it potentially my path back to a sex life that suddenly I realize I want again, if your desire has gone down the tubes in midlife, for example, and heated rivalry brought it back online for you? This is your map back to it. And if you're struggling, if you have a partner whose desires are very different than yours, then let's talk about it. This is part of the work that I do, is helping midlife women navigate some of these challenges. So reach out. I will leave my link in the show notes. And remember too that even if you don't have some of these placements, that the energetic weather moving through will give you some of these placements, at least temporarily. The sun moves through specific gates every 6-ish days. The moon is moving through even more quickly. All of the planetary transits are moving through the chart and activating different parts of your chart that you may not have as part of your birth chart. So from time to time, you're going to experience these different energies, and you might also experience different energy when you're with your partner or when you're around other people. This is literally the energetics of chemistry. It's the electromagnetics of why we are attracted to other people. And chances are, if you have, for example, gate 19, you are energetically looking for somebody who has 49 to link up with, to connect and make that channel. And then if you, let's say, don't have a defined solar plexus, that's going to turn on the solar plexus for you when you're around them. You're going to feel that energy. So the fact that if you have the 19 and your partner has the 49, this means that touch is important to the two of you, and this is something that you share, as an example. So use these as talking points with your partner, and or simply knowledge for yourself to come back into connection with your sexuality, with pleasure, with how you get to that pleasure, and deconstructing it from any shame that you may feel and understanding it from an energetics point of view. Because when you understand how desire moves through you, whether it's through experience, whether it's through sound, whether it's through touch, that's when you start to trust it. That's when you can advocate for it. So, on that note, I am wishing you the strength to let go of what no longer serves you, joy to fill your days, and the clarity to be who you came here to be.